Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Hey everyone. Good morning from Germany, Hamburg, and I'm really excited to deliver my first talk at CTJS conference. And when Iris reached out to me about this conference, I was like, let's do it. Why not? I mean, we are doing it for the first time in India, and really excited to be here with all these amazing speakers and a lot of talks still to come. So let's go ahead and see. I mean, of course, I don't have anything to tell you about my introduction. Yash already covered everything. But yeah, I'm a JD for Angular, and that's why I'm talking about Angular. And here we will be talking about how you can optimize your Angular app, because one of the major concern, right? So Angular developers working on Angular app, and once they hit a roadblock or some performance issues, they keep wondering how to do it. So some part of the talk is actually inspired by the optimization which I have done for my clients, and that will be the part of it. So in case you have any questions post talk, or you want to connect with me, of course you can go to Twitter or LinkedIn. That's Santosh Yadav Dev. You can find it on the internet as well, and same account is on GitHub also. So let's go ahead and get started. And first thing first, optimizing an Angular app or any app, right? Optimization is not a small task. It is a continuous task. So of course you will struggle a little bit. If you are scared of errors, don't be. So one good thing about Angular is whenever something fails, it will tell you. So if you're let's say optimizing or you're refactoring some code and something breaks, most of the time you will be able to catch that error during your build time or even during your development time, right? So when you do ng stuff, so don't be scared of the errors. That's the first thing I will tell you. And also, optimization is not a one-time task, right? So most of the application which we work on, just because of timelines, we focus more on delivering tasks, not the optimization part. And we don't do it until unless there is a complaint, right? So make sure that you are following all these practices which I'm going to tell you, so you don't hit that roadblock and then you have to go ahead and figure out, okay, what's the issue now? And also, I would suggest not every week, but at least once in a month, try to actually put some time aside to actually go ahead and see how your application is behaving, how your bundle size is growing. If you can implement or you can add it with your CI pipeline, that would be really great. I will give you some hints how you can do that, and keep revisiting it. It's not like performance is never a one-time thing. You have to revisit it again and again to make sure that your application behaves in same way as it was behaving 1 month ago. Because believe me, even a single PR can do a lot of damage to your perf side of your application, and you will not even notice us, because of course we work on development environment and we are not the actual product users, right? And once it goes live, we figure out, okay, there are a lot of issues which is going on. So let's go ahead and get started with the first trick, which is I'm sure most of you know. So use trackby with ng for. A lot of applications which I have seen is, of course, developer wants to deliver fast and they skip trackby. Don't do this. In case you are using ng4, go ahead and use trackby. It will only like improve the performance of your application, and you should have it. So make it default. I mean, make some probably lint rules in your application that, okay, in case I have ng4, we should have trackby. One other or one extra optimization which we can do, which is not required for, I think, a minimum size app. In case you have a large size application, you can also replace ng4 with something known as Rx4. So there is a library or an Angular library called Rx4. I'm not going to go into more detail about Rx4 because it's a huge library, and there are already talks by Michael Hiltaki, who is the creator of Rx Angular, and you can probably visit his talks because it's more about optimizing, like in case you have a large application. I mean, probably you will never need it in 90% of the application, but in case you have a very large application and you are hitting that performance bottleneck, Go ahead and see Rx Angular as well, which has a replacement for ng4, which is called Rx4, which will also optimize your templates even more. So first thing, track by with ng4, or in case you have a large application, lot of components, go ahead and see Rx Angular and replace your ng4 with Rx4. And they also have a directive, so they also have another directive called Rxlet. So you can combine Rxlet and Rx4 and you can get extra optimization for your templates. On push change direction, let me tell you, before you actually go ahead and move into or start doing on push change direction, it is good to have, and you should have it from day one. In case you don't, it doesn't matter. For most of the application, default change direction is really fast. You may never need on push change direction. It's good to have, a good practice to have. But in case you already have an application where you don't have on push change direction applied for all the components, don't be scared right now. So don't think that, okay, I have done something wrong. It's not. It's absolutely fine. Small to medium application, I think you will never find any issue using on push change direction. It's only in case you have a lot of applications, a lot of interaction going on within the components, where you will hit the bottleneck. So what you can do, how on push change direction works, right? So in Angular, whenever you do some action, what happens? So let's say this is your component tree, and you do some action here, BC component. What will happen is, by default, Angular will go ahead and check entire tree. So even though you are making some action in here, it will go ahead and check for changes in all the component, even in A component, AC component, everything will be checked. Once you move on to on push change direction, Angular will check, okay, where the actually operation was performed. For example, let's say it was performed on AC component, which has some changes. Let's say it's a child component of A component, right? So only A component and AC component will be like changed, or in case, let's say A component shares something, they are not related here, but in case they are not, it will not, A component will not be changed, and only this component, AC and A component, that's it. That's what change section will check. Okay, these components have done, there is some changes, and that's it. Other components will not be touched. Now, how to move on to on push change section strategy? There are multiple ways you can do it. You can use NGRX, which is for state management, and you can move everything to observables, and you will be able to subscribe to all the observables using NGRX. Another approach is, let's say you already have NGRX. There are a few more solutions which I'll suggest you. There is something called as NGRX component store. In case you are not able to, let's say now there are two scenarios. You may already have NGRX store inside your application, and let's say you are hitting some performance bottleneck now, and you don't have NGRX store. What you will do? So one challenge which I have seen is introducing NGRX into an existing code base, which is of course a little bit challenging. There is another solution called NGRX component store, which you can use to introduce state management into an existing application. It's a good solution. Again, Rx Angular also come with Rx Angular store, which you can also use for introducing state management for your component. So NGRX component store and Rx Angular store, they both are, Rx Angular state, they both are solution for introducing state management or to your components. It's not for entire application. So what you can do is you can keep introducing state management for each and every component. So it's like you will be doing things incremental, which is always, I would say, in case you already have an application, it's always a good practice, right? So to do something which is incremental, introducing NGRX store you will have to touch a lot of code, which is sometimes really scary because you have to go ahead and see how your entire application works. And most of the time, it's not like you are the only developer who is actually working on everything. So prefer NGRX component store or Rx Angular state in case you have existing application and you want to introduce state management and you want to convert your all components to on push. Next solution. So a lot of applications have like huge bundle size, right? So, but there will be a lot of parts of your application which you generally or user generally don't use. So you should have a lazy loading in place. Try to use it as much as possible. Why? Uh, you get separate feature bundles. So it's not like your user is downloading everything at once. They will be downloading only the part of the app they will be using. For example, let's say you have multiple routes available on your page, home, about us, login, and then inside login, you have dashboard, orders. So what you can do is all those can be lazy loaded. So the user who has even not logged in will not get the code for dashboard, right? Because he's not logged in right now. Or he will not get the code for orders because of course he's still visiting the homepage. So those code is like useless for him. You can load bundles on demand. It's not like it will be preloaded for you or pre-loaded for your users. So whenever the user clicks on, let's say, orders, dashboard, at that time, the extra code will be downloaded for him or the user, sorry. You can also reduce the code on first stuff, because if you know not every country has good internet. I'm sure India has like now better infrastructure thanks to Geo introducing big plans for internet, and I think broadbands are really not that costly in most of the cities in India, and we have good bandwidth. But there are some countries where the bandwidth is not good, right? And you don't want to write your code only for India, or even in India there are multiple cities where internet is not that good. So remember that whenever you are writing code, you are not writing for yourself. Of course, we are all from tech background and we all enjoy using high bandwidth internet, but not everyone has that, right? You are using the code, you are writing the code for the end users who can be anyone, right? And that's why try to reduce your main bundle size so it can be downloaded faster. And there are some things which we'll see at last. So there are also other strategies. Of course, lazy loading is one, but you can also configure preloading. So there are multiple ways you can do that. So one solution is Nginx quick link. What is preloading? Let me just tell you. So preloading is like in lazy loading, what you do is you download the bundles when you need it. In preloading, what we will do is once you configure preloading, your Angular will check if the user is active. If he is idle, the Angular will start downloading the chunks in background. So that's preloading. So figure out which strategy works best for you. Either is it lazy loading or preloading. So for preloading, you can also use Nginx quick link. Nginx quick link is something which will download the bundle. Let's say you have multiple URLs on your page or multiple routes. So home, dashboard, orders. So whenever user hovers above, let's say any of the route, Angular will start preloading that particular code base. So it will try to verify, see if you have actually user has hovered above this particular link, then it will download. So that's one solution which you can apply, Nginx quick link. Another is you can also use guest parser. So in guest parser, I think it's a good solution in case you already have Google Analytics already available with you. So in guest parser, it uses actually machine learning. So in guest parser, it will see, okay, so if this user logged in, what is the history, right? So how this user actually visits this application, and it will try to identify, okay, which route should be lazy loaded next or loaded next. And based on of course, initially when you start, it will be probably most of the things will be preloaded by default. But as your data improves, it will try to figure out, okay, which route is used by this particular user. So those routes are already prefetched or preloaded for that particular user. So a good solution, just see if you already have Google Analytics in place in your application. Most of application does, because most of the Angular application is like commercial, and you'll be able to configure it with Google Analytics. So just check guest parser for Angular, and you'll be able to find the library. Avoid shared model. So this is one of the important thing here. Actually, in 2020, I started working for an organization, and then they had a huge shared model. I'm sure this is the code which most of the Angular developers can relate to, because this is a code which is in Angular material documentation. So we had so many modules similar to this. So I decided that, okay, now let's do a little bit study around this, if this is a good practice or not. So I created an application, and then I've, of course, ran some command to see how my application looks like. So when I started a new application, this is, you can see it has only one bundle, which is main bundle, and then the entire bundle size was 382 KB, which was fine. Then I started introducing more code. Here, I added more code to this, so it became 423 KB. And then I added more shared module. So here you can see with shared module, with everything in a single module, right? My application was 639 KB. And then what I did is, next step, which we already saw in this particular slide, lazy loading. So I decided to do lazy loading, and let's see how it behaves. So even with lazy loading, you can see there is one -es. I'm sure this is a little bit small, but there are multiple bundles, 1ES, 6ES, 7ES. So these are all lazy loaded chunks. Then what I did is I removed the shared module. So I removed this entire code base. And what I did is I created separate modules, or added this code, or added the imports into the module where it is needed. So for, let's say, example, I have, let's see this. Right, so I have multiple components here. So department, employee. So I removed this shared module. So this is my shared module, and then started adding only what is needed into its own module. So for example, if department has its own module, so, and it uses mat table and mat paginator. So I removed everything from shared and just added this to my module. That's it. And first thing, if you have this shared module, remove it from everywhere, and you will start getting error. And then add only the modules which is required, and you will save a lot of bytes from this exercise as well. But it is going to take time. So in case you already have a lot of shared module in your application right now, start with one and then keep removing it. And of course, have a buy-in from your team that, okay, I'll be doing this practice, and we can actually reduce a lot of bundle size. So here you can see 705 KB with lazy loading and even shared module. Then I started removing shared module, and you can see I already lost 40 KB, or I reduced my bundle by 40 KB by doing a small exercise, right? So in case you have lot shared module, just start doing it today. Use strict mode from the day one. In case you are starting a new application, start with strict mode on. In case you don't, migrate like incrementally. So it's, let's say you have multiple libraries for your code base. Start with libraries. See which library you can do first. Start with the smaller one, and start doing or adding strict mode to that particular library. So because with strict mode, it generates less bundle size. And if you start a new application with strict mode, you may have seen something different, which I'll talk next. So always check what's in your bundle. This is really important, because I have figured a lot about how my application looks like, or why my application is really so slow, by just figuring out, okay, what's there in the code base. To do that, you can use Source Map Explorer, and it requires some manual steps. So to avoid that, what I did is I created a new package, which is called ngx builders analyze. You can just run this to command ng add ngx builders analyze, and then you can run your this command called ng run with your project name :analyze. So these two commands, and you will be set. You will get a report, something like this. So you'll get a similar report where you will be able to see, okay, what's going on in my application. And then let's talk about budgets. So this is what I was referring to when I said, okay, when you use strict mode, the budgets are already set to minimum. Here, sorry. Hello. Good here. Okay. Okay. So if you go to your angular.json file, right? So all the you will find something known as budgets. Also, you have in case you are using Nx, already an Nx user, you may have project.json. and you may find something called budgets. And here, there are multiple types which this budget has. So you have initial budget, you have any component style. So initial budget is what your initial app size would be. So you can see there is some stats. So it says 100 KB, which is maximum warning, and there is a maximum error, which is 150 KB. Similarly, for any component, you have 6 KB and maximum error is 10 KB. So let's talk about what the budget is. This is really important. Remember, I said you can also do or check your bundle size with every PR. This is where the budgets really come into the picture. So there are multiple types of budgets. So bundle, the first one, there are multiple, I will see all. So bundle is the size of the specific bundle. So in case you want to make sure that your bundle size does not go beyond this. So you can specify which bundle, and then you can specify maximum error, maximum warning. So maximum warning is, okay, at this stage, your build will give you a warning that, okay, you set it to 100 KB, but your bundle size is going above 100 KB, and it will tell you by how much. And then maximum error is, if it goes to this, above this, just break my build. And this is how you can keep your builds, or you can check your builds with every PR. So you can, of course, most of the application which we use has CI/CD in place, and you can set this settings. And so when you do ng build, it will check, okay, maximum error is 150 KB, but right now it goes to 160 KB. Your build will break, and you will get an error straight away. So what you can do is, don't try to increase it. This is one of the things which I have seen a lot of teams doing, that, okay, they hit the maximum error, and they increase it. Don't do that. Revisit the earlier slides. See if lazy loading is something which you can do, or see if you have some shared module introduced. See if the strict mode is on, or is it off, and revisit those, and then come to conclusion that we want to increase this size. Otherwise, don't touch it. And in a big team, in case you are leading a team, for example, have a check on this. That's take the ownership for this. That, okay, whenever the bundle size breaks, I will sit with the developer and we'll try to figure out what's going wrong, and not to increase the bundle size, or not to increase the settings every time my build breaks due to the bundle size. So, okay, the bundle is one. The initial size of the app. So this is something which will be the initial code which will be downloaded by your end user. So you can set this. You can set all script. So in Angular.json, you have a script tag. So where you can define, okay, I want to load this script, and what happens is those scripts are actually bundled into your application. So you can also define the size that, okay, all the script size combined should not go beyond this much. Let's say 100 KB or 200 KB. You have all, it's like the entire size of your application, and you can set that to that, okay, my entire application size should not go beyond 2.5 MB. And that's the benchmark. And if it goes above, of course, you will revisit your app. Then you have any component style, where so whenever you, of course, create some components, of course, there will be some stylings which will be applied for each and every component. And this is where you can set, okay, this component should not go beyond, let's say, 6 KB of CSS. And you can set that. Any script where you will be able to define that, okay, I have a lot of scripts getting downloaded, and any of them should not go beyond 100 KB. So that's for each script, right? So there can be multiple scripts of 100 KB which can be downloaded. And it doesn't matter. So any file should not go beyond this much. That's the stat you have finally. Okay, so now you figured out, okay, you have your application, you figured out, okay, this is what is inside my code, and you figured out that my Angular libraries, which I created, is actually adding a lot of bundles or a lot of code to my final bundle. Now, how to do that? So this is something which is really useful for large apps, and I have seen in my last application, just by doing secondary entry points, I was able to reduce my bundle size by 1.5 MB. So it was, when I started, it was at around 5.8, and when I completed the entire migration, it was around 4 MB. So even more than 1.5 MB. So and then I did another migration, because there were multiple libraries, to secondary entry points, and then we ended up 3.5 MB. So it's final 2 MB which I reduced by just doing secondary entry points. So why to do secondary entry points is most of the Angular libraries, it's not your fault. Most of the Angular libraries by default have a single entry point. So it means if I keep adding the code to an Angular library, it will be, and whenever I import it, it will be like everything will be added to the bundle. That's by default, by design. So whenever you import, it will just keep adding the chunks to that particular module. So let's say if I create a library A and introduce or import it in my app.module, which is my main module, entire library A is part of my main module, which will be loaded when your application starts. By using secondary entry points, you will be able to only import what is needed. So in case you are already using Angular, you may know Angular material. So you ever noticed Angular material slash mat table, or sorry, table slash forms. So those are secondary entry points. So it tells you that, okay, if you are using forms, I will not add anything else to your bundle. I will just give you forms and related libraries. For example, if forms uses CDK or it uses label, so those will be added to your bundle, not the table or other components, right? So this is how you can configure secondary entry points by your own. So generally, to add secondary entry points, you just have to add a package.json into your folder. You have to have separate folders. In case you are using Nx, it simplifies it. You can just run this command, Nx generate library secondary entry point. This is a generator which Nx already has, and you can give secondary name. Let me show you an example. So here, so I have multiple libraries here, and then this to-do shared has some code base, and then it has to-do list. So what I want to do is, I don't want to import everything. I want to import only to-do list. And I have already configured my secondary entry points. Let me show you the output, how it looks like. So you can actually do, let's say if I build Nx build to-do shared, you will see that there are multiple entry points which will be built. So it says, okay, there is an entry point called Nx lib demo slash to-do shared slash to-do list, similar to Angular material. So Angular slash material slash forms. And this is your, let's say, Angular forms, Angular material, the main package, which of course there is nothing inside this. But of course, you need an entry point, default entry points, and you cannot import anything from here. In case you have some code base by default, available into your SRC folder, that will be available. Otherwise, everything will be available as a separate package. So you don't end up importing everything. So very useful in case you have a large application. Always use US module. So if you remember Angular 10, Angular 10 introduced check for CommonJS modules, because CommonJS modules cannot be tree shaped. So avoid using it, and you will get a warning in case you are using any CommonJS module inside your application. You will get a warning. You will be able to see, okay, you are using this CommonJS modules, and you can actually, if let's say you don't have any solution for that, you can actually add that into allowed CommonJS dependencies to avoid those warnings. And those warnings will be removed from your output, but just keep it so you know that, okay, these are all CommonJS modules we have, and you can replace it eventually in future. Important, of course, use CDN to serve assets. Don't try to put everything inside your application. So there are advantages, of course, of using CDN. So you have low network latency, high availability, and better analytics. So you know from where your users are trying to access the assets or trying to access your application, and it decreases your server load, right? So like all the CDNs are really smart. They know what is being used from where, and they have smart analytics also. So try to rely on them rather than using your own server for assets. This is important, and Angular took a step ahead, and now you will always get prod bundle by default. So if you are not aware, last release, this change was made because a lot of applications were using ng build, which used to do development build. And not many applications were actually using prod build. So Angular took a step and they said, okay, now we will do the prod build by default. So you don't have to worry about it, but use prod build by default and enable the zzip minification on your server. Most of the servers are have this capability for zzip minification. Use that. It reduces your the final bundle which will be served to user by 70 to 80%. Most of the server are able to do that. So let's say if you have prod bundle of 2.5 MB, probably you will be only serving around 600 KB to the user, which is okay, right? 600 KB is not that big. So there are a few more references which I want to share. There's one related to CSS, and of course there's second one which is related to shared material. Related to CSS, I will just add one more thing. Angular material now supports @use and forward. Go ahead and use @ and forward. Don't use import. I have found some application where we were using import, and import has a downside that it will import everything into your code base, right? So if you, let's say, import a CSS into component A, component B, so it will be part of both. Use only uses if use only checks, okay, if it is not loaded, then I will load it, or it. And there is one more advantage that @use will remove all the private things which you have defined within CSS. So with new applications, I think starting Angular 11 or Angular 12, you'll be able to use @use and use that. Don't use import, which I've seen giving a lot of performance bottlenecks because of the huge bundle size they generate. So yes, that's it from my side. In case you have any questions, of course, feel free to connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and we can discuss more about it.